Uh, oh yeah, one second. I forgot about that. Got it. Okay. We had a very special guest speaker today, Rebbe Simbelsky. And Rebbe Simbelsky is, of course, the mother of Yitzchok Belsky, Olav Shalom, that was with us. And she spoke about her son. She spoke about her son, the experience, and so many special things. As some of you may remember or know that, he was doing very well in the yeshiva. Is coming back for another year. Went home for the summer. He was in the. Well, not they lived here, but he went to the States for the summer. He was there for the summer, and he OD'd there in the States. So she speaks about him and about many other stories. A very, very talented and special speaker. Well, she was talking about a little bit from Rabbi Twersky, who was speaking once to prisoners who were about to be released, and talking about self-worth. And one fellow said to him, the rabbi said, I've been in jail 16 times. Nobody wants to see me released. They think it's better for me and for the world that I stay in jail. And his answer to that, Rabbi Twersky's answer to that was the following. He said, if somebody finds a piece of glass, old glass with stones around it and old mud and all kinds of, and what's he going to do? He's ready to throw it away. A piece of old glass with mud, what is going to? But an expert will know that if you clean out and clear away, you're going to find that there's a diamond there. And the diamond is worth millions. It says, but you need an expert to know that. Otherwise, it's just a piece of glass with dirt and stones and And said Dr. Rabbi Twersky, he said, I'm an expert, and I know that you're a diamond. I know that you're a diamond. You just need to be polished a little bit. So it was suggested that we should put Naveit Zion Diamond Polishing Center. We're a diamond polishing center. Yeah. Okay, here's a story. This story, I think, is a very important story because we can learn from it to be grateful. He says, the Sefer Chai B'Tovda, Rabbi Lugasi tells the story of Rabbi Aryeh. Rabbi Aryeh was blessed with many talents. As a youth, he was the smartest in his class, and he had a passion to grow. Whenever he achieved a milestone, he would not dwell on it, but he would immediately aspire to reach the next level. He married, had many children, and spent his days teaching Torah in a yeshiva. Eventually, his family grew and he needed to find a bigger place to live. The day he found the perfect house in a new location, he did not pause for a second to appreciate it. He was already on the next step, figuring out where he would send his children, the yeshiva, and how his family would adjust. It's a new neighborhood, how would they adjust? Later, he admitted that Hashem was continually showering him with candies. Hashem was giving him one good thing after another. Candies from above. But he was always so busy running to pick them up, he never stopped for a second to thank him. Never stopped to thank Hashem. Probably didn't appreciate that much either, because he was always looking for the next step. Right? One day he said Hashem gave him a big present, a reminder he was failing to appreciate Hashem's gifts. That was the present. What happened? He was told that one of his children was having major problems in school. A few days later, the landlord told him he had to move out of the house within 2 weeks. So not enough that is one of his children is having major problems and really in trouble in school. His landlord says he has to go find another place to live. And then a few days later, the yeshiva where he works called up and said because of financial issues, they're going to consolidate the classes, which means, of course, that the following year, he has no job, like consolidating. So all of a sudden, all at once, a child in trouble in school has to move, no choice, and he's going to lose his job. All at once. For the first time, Reb Aryeh sat down and began to reflect upon his life. He went back and thought about his childhood and all the gifts he had been given. He was the brightest in the class. Everything always went his way. And he realized he never said thank you to Hashem. He never said thank you. Realizing this, he sat in a room and cried and thanked Hashem for everything he could remember. Spent a long time there. And afterwards, after he thanked Hashem and went through his life and found all the things, all the blessings which he had, he thanked Hashem. After all that, right, he sat in a room. He felt much better. He felt elevated. He felt close to Hashem. That same night, didn't wait long. The Rebbe from his son's yeshiva called with a positive report. He was doing better. Another call he got, they found a beautiful home, was available for rent, right? For the same rent that they were paying. And several days later, another yeshiva called, offering him a job. It worked, right? From that day on, Rabbi Aryeh's life changed. He would never take anything for granted again. Now he would appreciate everything. He would constantly thank Hashem for each and every blessing. When he looks back at that harsh time and says, what looked like a difficult, all these things all of a sudden happening, his whole world falling apart. It was really a blessing in disguise because it taught him to appreciate all the candies Hashem was giving him, appreciate his life, to thank Hashem for it. It made him into a different person. Yeah. That's the first story for today. We're doing Living Emunah. I want to give you fellows an idea. I said already last week that Living Emunah is really the safer tuned into our generation. Whereas for those who are Aivdei Hashem, Ali Shur for the past generation, but here for this generation, we need stories of Hashgacha Pratis. Hashem cares for us. Hashem is concerned about us. How we can be aware of Hashem, and that you find in Living Emunah. That was Living Emunah 6. Now we're going to another one in Living Emunah 6 before we change to 5. And this one, let's see.
You want to eat something? No. Is your time still full?
Okay. At a recent routine visit, Joe's physician recommended medicine to lower his blood pressure. He had high blood pressure. So he needed medicine to lower his blood pressure. Joe wanted to accomplish this goal naturally rather than by taking pills. He looked into the matter and saw an advertisement for a drink that guaranteed to lower blood pressure. He emailed the company that produced it and asked if the product was kosher. And if a drink that's going to lower your blood pressure, but first he has to know if it's kosher. The next day, Joe received an email from the CEO informing him that the product was not certified kosher. But if you want, the CEO wrote, we will give you the ingredients and you can try making it yourself. Joe was shocked that a business would be willing to share its formula with the customer. He called the company and asked if he could speak with the CEO. That CEO, let's call him Dave, lives in Chicago, and agreed to talk. Dave told Joe that he too is Jewish, although not affiliated. He does not know anything about kosher or any other laws. The only religious thing he ever did over the past few decades was to say Kaddish in memory of his father. But I've been thinking about becoming more religious, Dave said. Okay, this is very interesting. He calls the CEO of this company, right, who offered to give him the formula and tell him, how to make this thing himself. He could do it in a kosher way, right? And the CEO tells him that he doesn't know anything about religion. He just said Kaddish once for his father, and but he's been thinking about maybe he should be a little bit more religious. As they continued their conversation, Dave asked Joe where he's from, right? So he asked the CEO, "Where are you from?" He said, "Brooklyn, New York." "What part of Brooklyn?" "Flatbush," Joe replied. "Hey," Dave explained, "that's where I grew up 40 years ago." He grew up also in Flatbush. "Where in Flatbush did you live?" asked Joe. 23rd Street, Dave said. 1240 East 23rd Street, which happened to be, listen to this, the exact same house that Joe was currently living in. The fellow who was calling up the CEO lived once in that same house. What hashgacha pratis? "I've really been meaning to become more affiliated with Judaism," Dave confided. "Can you help me do it?" Joe asked if there was anything he was familiar with besides Kaddish. I want you to hear this, it's very important. Dave replied, "Over the past couple of years, I memorized all 613 mitzvahs. I memorized the 613. I did one a day for 613 days straight, but I'm not relating to any of it. Please guide me." Joe told him he should start by putting on tefillin. The very first thing he should do. He wants to become closer, put on tefillin. Dave was less than thrilled. The last time he put on tefillin was at his bar mitzvah, right? And knowing from my own experience, sometimes the tefillin that you put on aren't even kosher. In the worst case scenario, they have comic strips, but for parshias. But very often, even if they have real parshias, it's still not kosher. Ask Hashem for a sign. I don't know why he told him to do this, but he did. He was reluctant to put on tefillin. He hadn't done it since his bar mitzvah. He said, "Ask Hashem for a sign." Okay, he said. A few days later, Dave called Joe. It's amazing. Hashem sent me a sign. I went to the synagogue this week for the afternoon services because it was my father's yard site. As soon as I walked in, 2 men came over and asked if I had put on tefillin yet that day. And I said no. Right then and there, they put tefillin on me. I asked a few people. I was curious. Do these men come every day and do this? First of all, it was a mincha. It wasn't Shachris, it was Mincha. So they come every day and put on tefillin on Mincha time. They said no. They had never seen them before. That's my sign. Wow. That's a real sign. All of a sudden, in shul, two men come and put tefillin on me and ask me if I put tefillin on. Mincha time. So I'm going to go right away and buy a pair of tefillin. That's the sign I was looking for. Look what Hashem did for this man, writes the living Emunah. He was totally unaffiliated, and he had nowhere to turn for direction on his own. But see, he did something. That makes all the difference. He did something on his own. He took initiative. He tried to do something. He started to learn the 613 mitzvahs. He put in some effort and had a desire, and Hashem sent him the help he needed. The only man in the world who happened to be living in his old house called him up to find out about a product he was selling, and then became his spiritual guide. Isn't that amazing? Mind-boggling. The only man in the world who happened to be living now in his old house, he called him up and asked him about the product he was selling. It's just mind-boggling, the chain of events over here. So if someone wants to come closer to Hashem, just needs desire and effort. And he took the effort. He learned the 613. Then Hashem will come and help him the rest of the way. Yeah, and we're going to close that, and we're going to try Emunah, living Emunah 5. Living Emunah 5. I listen to this story. Listen to this story. Listen to this story. Mrs. Shane went into labor 11 p.m. on Leil Shabbos, on Friday night. Not the best time to go into labor, but we really don't have much of a choice. Shabbos Kodesh. The couple had a driver pick them up and money prepared for him to take. They put aside before Shabbos some money, and he should take it. The driver decided to travel from Brooklyn to Manhattan via the Manhattan Bridge, which had heavy traffic due to construction. When they finally got into the city, it was bumper-to-bumper traffic. Meanwhile, she's having faints. She's having labor. And it took them 20 minutes to crawl forward a few blocks. The contractions were coming stronger and closer to each other. The car was nowhere near the hospital. Mr. Shane kept urging the driver, "It's an emergency. Maneuver out of the traffic. Let's get out of here." But there was nothing he could do. Finally, the traffic began to move freely. The driver started to speed. The contractions were getting stronger. All of a sudden, the car hit a huge pothole. Mrs. Shane bit back a cry. The car jutted to a halt. They were stuck. They were stuck. "I'm going to need to get the car towed," the driver informed them sourly. "You really should get out." "Please call us another taxi," Mr. Shane implored. "You have to do something for us." The driver was frustrated about the damage to his vehicle and the lost work hours. "There's nothing I can do," he snapped, and again told them to exit the car. The Shanes could not believe what was happening. There they were, stranded on the side of the highway with no money and no phone. And their baby was ready to be born. And it's Shabbos. They were in big trouble. They called out to Hashem to help. Then they noticed a police car across the highway and tried to get the officer's attention. "Woman in labor," the young husband yelled, frantically waving his arms. "Please help us." The police officer zigzagged across the highway, weaving between vehicles, and immediately sized up the situation. He told them, "There's an ambulance parked outside a building up the road. I'll go there and find out if the EMTs can help you." Within minutes, an ambulance pulled up next to them. The Shanes were transported quickly to the hospital, where, in very short order, Mrs. Shane gave birth to a healthy baby. Baruch Hashem. It was unbelievable, the mother later told me. The police car was stopped exactly where we got stuck and was just sitting there waiting for us. We asked afterwards, what was the ambulance doing parked outside a building? It turned out that there was a different emergency in that building and help had already arrived. The first responders, that was the Vatsola ambulance, whatever, needed some extra equipment. They called an ambulance just for its equipment and was waiting outside for the equipment to be returned. Just happened to be waiting outside. Hashem had everything in motion before these people even got into trouble. He knew that when they called out to him for assistance, they would need it immediately. Help was waiting, was ready and waiting. Hashem knows our needs before we do. We should feel comfortable davening for any need, realizing that whatever we're asking for, if it's good for us, it's meant for us, Hashem has already prepared it in advance. Yeah, that's a very special story. Okay, listen to this one. What time is it? Now we're doing? Oh, we're late. We're very late. I have time for one more, maybe. Yeah, let's take it. 2:30. I like this. I like this story. There's a story of Sefer Emunah Shlema about a religious businessman from Eretz Yisrael who went on a day trip to do business in an area that did not have many religious people. He didn't have many religious people living there. After his meeting, he was hungry, so he looked for a kosher establishment. He was looking for a kosher place. After making many inquiries, he found a restaurant with a proper kosher certification and was happy to see the religious owner eating there himself. He ordered lunch, and while he was waiting, about 30 young boys walked into the store. Here's a store in a place where there are very few religious people, but it's a very certified kosher store, right? And all of a sudden, 30 boys walked into the store. They each took a kippah from the shelf, put it on, and said in unison, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Then they opened the refrigerator. Each boy took out a soda and said, Sha'akol ne'yeh b'faras bracha, and drank the soda. They drank their sodas, thanked the owner, and left the store. What was that all about, the businessman? Asked the owner. The owner replied, those boys go to secular schools. They don't know anything about Torah and mitzvahs. I saw them outside one day and invited them to come in for a drink. I explained to them the importance of believing in Hashem and saying brachas. I told them that if they wanted, they could come to my store every day after school, and I'll give each of them a free drink over which they'll recite a bracha, sha'akol, and they'll also say Shema Yisrael. They had a deal for them. He's going to give a free drink to 30 boys every day. They've been coming every day, and one mitzvah led to another. Some of them are telling me they're saying brachas at home now. You hear that? They're saying brachas at home. And some say they are observing other mitzvahs as well. The businessman was very touched when he heard this story. The store owner added, a wealthy man came from America, was once here when the boys walked in. He offered me $1 million if I would sell him the merit for this act. A wealthy businessman walks into the store. He sees 30 guys come in. They said Shema. They took a drink. They made a sha'akol, right? He said he perceived, right? He perceived the value, the chashivas of this mitzvah. So he said, he'll buy it. He wants the schus of this mitzvah for $1 million. $1 million. Wow. I started thinking of all the things I could do for $1 million with $1 million, right? I probably could do a few things too. But then I thought they're all physical. The only thing we learn in this life that we take with us, the only thing we earn in this life, the only thing we earn in this life that we take with us is our Torah and mitzvahs. And those I would never give up. So I respectfully declined. I couldn't be happy with my decision. You hear? This store owner I'm sure he wasn't a wealthy person. To be working still in such a store far away from the real Jewish community. Yeah, I'm sure he wasn't a wealthy person. And he would have been able to get $1 million. $1 million. But Torah and mitzvahs are our treasures. So the $1 million I can't take with me. The schar for getting these boys to say Shema Yisrael, to introducing them a little bit to Torah and mitzvahs, to having make a bracha, right? And you see some of them are taking it go further. That you can take with you in the world to come. Torah and mitzvahs are our treasures. If we observe them, our lives are successful. And that alone should make us happy. Fellows, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the stories as much as I enjoyed telling them to you. And you should have we should all have the chizuk that we need, right? It's hours before Lag BaOmer, right? You should all have the simcha and we should get close to the kedusha and the kedusha of Bar Yochai should all bring us together with Hashem, and we should daven for Mashiach Tzidkenu so that we can all dance in Yerushalayim together.
Amen.
Amen.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mosh.
Have a great week. Have a great week.
You too.
Okay, thank you, Mosh.
Shalom.
Hey, I finally made it.
Yeah, I see you. Shalom.
Yeah, I told you. Anyway, thank you. It
Was it worth it?
was always worth it. Every time I listen to you, it's worth it. What kind of question is that? Oh, thank you very much, Ravi. I'll have a wonderful Lag BaOmer.
You too. Have a good one.
You soon. Be well. Bye-bye.
Amen. Okay. Call to everybody. Call to Shalom.